Hi guys, it's SimLicy here, so welcome to another speed build. So today I am building something that I am very excited to share with you guys. This has been a build that I have wanted to do for a very long time. I have tried to build it a few different times. I think maybe like 6 months ago was the last time that I attempted it. I don't know, maybe it's been longer. It's been a while and I just really didn't have an idea of all of the things that I wanted to include, the style that I wanted to go for, but I did get this idea about the time bowling stuff was released. I wanted to build somewhere for like kids to hang out. I wanted there to be, you know, a movie theater, an arcade, a bowling alley, and like a few different little shops and like a pizza place or a burger place or something like that. And I just absolutely have been in love with this idea, and I'm so happy that I was finally able to build something that I'm really just proud of and excited to share with you guys. So I hope you guys will like it too, but of course let me know what you guys think. And I am going to be splitting this into 2 different parts because this build took me hours and hours. I've been working on it all week, and when I sped up the footage and cut out minor parts, like literally I cut out maybe like a minute worth of footage. It wasn't a whole lot because I don't know, I didn't want to cut anything out. I just love all of it so much. So I decided to split it into 2 parts, which isn't my favorite thing to do. I do prefer to leave videos as a whole. I've done it a couple of times, but I always prefer just to leave it as one long video. But an hour is just way too long to do. It wouldn't be a very good voiceover, and I don't think it would be that like good of a video. So I decided to split it into 2 parts. This part will be mostly the exterior. You will see a little bit of the interior because I do place a few objects just to make sure I have room for them. Because if you guys have bowling stuff, you know that the bowling alleys are huge. They take up so many squares. I'm not really sure how many, but a lot of them. They're huge. So I had to make sure that I had a place for them. And I also had to make sure I had enough room for the arcade machines because we only have one like true arcade machine in the game. And it is also ginormous. It takes up like 5 or 6 squares, something like that. So I was only able to fit 2 of them in the arcade. And then in the arcade, I was able to fit a couple other things like some card tables and the foosball tables and some darts and stuff and lots of decorations. Like all of the walls are completely full and I just love it. The arcade is probably my favorite spot, especially after I changed the light color to like this purple color. It's perfect. I love it so much. And I also really like the music store that I included. That is a lot of fun. There's so many cool decorations in there. And then I also really like, you know, the bowling alley and the movie theater and this little restaurant that I am starting off with. And then other than that, there is like a toy, it's kind of a toy store, but it's also kind of like an electronics store with like a bunch of Void Critter stuff in there. I thought that would be cute for like the younger kids. And then there is a bookstore with a chess table in front of it. And so I think there's a little bit of something for everybody and not just kids and teens. Like I definitely think adult Sims would have a lot of fun here. And when I was playtesting this, there were so many different types of Sims, like watching movies and playing the arcade machines, and I had no idea that the arcade machine actually costs money. It costs 1 simoleon. I was really excited about that for some reason, but I thought that was really cute. And when I was playtesting it, I did play it as a few different lot types. So the first thing that I think I ran it as was a retail lot because there is a couple of stores. So I thought that would be probably the most like realistic idea for this build. But I have learned recently that I don't really like retail lots in The Sims because all of the Sims that come to, you know, visit the store, they just kind of stare at the items that they want to buy and they don't really do anything or interact with the other objects that aren't for sale. And I don't know, I just didn't find it to be that fun. And then I also ran it as a restaurant, which worked really well because there is a chef station and I included all of the items that are required for a restaurant. That'll definitely be in the final build. And that worked okay, but I don't think it's the best way to run this build, but you have that option if you want to. And then I also ran it as a bar because in the restaurant there's also a bar. And I used the one that came from bowling stuff because it looks more like a soda fountain and I kind of wanted it to have more of that vibe. And I think it looks really good in there. But yeah, as a bar, no kids showed up, so it kind of defeated the purpose of the whole vibe I wanted to go for with this build, but it definitely works as that if you prefer it. But the last thing that I did playtest it as was a park, and I'm really happy that I did because it actually worked great as a park. And I just sized down some playground equipment and merged it into that stuff that I have on the roof, the like ventilation equipment. I just merged it into there to kind of hide it because I didn't want to have like a random like swing set or monkey bars anywhere on the build. So that seemed to work out really well, and there was lots of kids that showed up. There was lots of adults and teens, people playing the arcade machines. Some were playing chess. There were Sims reading. A lot of Sims watching the movies. They definitely seem to be really fond of this movie theater. And speaking of this, I am so happy that we have these objects that came with Get Famous, because I think this was another thing that I really struggled with when trying to build this before we got Get Famous, was making it look like a real movie theater. So these were really helpful. I'm excited to build another one in Del Sol Valley. I'm not sure if it's going to be an actual movie theater. I might do one, but I'm thinking about doing one that's more of like a lounge or like a performing place. I'm not exactly sure. I have lots of ideas, and hopefully I can make it happen. But yeah, really happy that this one finally came together, and it ended up being a lot larger than I had realized it was going to be. It ends up taking up this entire lot. So you will see there at the left side that I have some trees. I end up getting rid of all of those. There's no landscaping on this build except for like a couple of planter boxes with a few bits of greenery, but I was planning on having like trees and like a bunch of benches and like light poles and things like that, but I didn't have room to pretty much do anything. I was even going to raise up the foundation, which you will see me mess with for a while, and I add stairs, and I thought the stairs looked really good, especially in front of this movie theater, but I don't know, I just didn't really have room for them, so it didn't quite work out. But either way, I'm really happy with it, and I'm so happy that it came out to be a really big build, because I feel like it just looks kind of grand, and I just really like the way it looks in Magnolia Promenade in general. But the upper stories, I didn't decorate those. I did put flooring and wallpaper, but they're purely for just the looks of it, because I felt like that would look a lot better. But it's only the first story that is completely decorated. There's not even stairs to the second story, but I think if you wanted to do a bit of storytelling or run this, you could definitely like create an apartment upstairs. I think that would be really cute, and I'm sure you guys could find a spot to put some stairs. I actually think in between these two movie theaters would be a great spot to put it, because there's just some dead space there, but I'm sure there's other spots to put it too. But I am working on the floor plan for the movie theater right now, and this changes a lot when I go to decorate it, because I realized that I didn't have as much space in here to be able to fit some counters with some popcorn machines or some vending machines. I just had like no space to do anything. But I do mess with this quite a bit, and I felt like the number of bathrooms was a little bit overkill, so I ended up using that space to have more like lobby space. But there is a total of 4 bathrooms in the movie theater, because the 2 bathrooms that I ended up leaving have 2 stalls, so I think that's kind of like 4. And then there is another bathroom in the like toy store, electronics store, whatever you want to call it. And so I think that should be plenty. It didn't seem to cause any issues when I was play testing it. But now I'm just picking out some furniture to put inside the movie theaters. I ended up going with these couches that came with Get Famous. I was going to use like single chairs, because I felt like that would look a little bit more like a movie theater, but then your Sims can't like snuggle and watch a movie, so I decided to go with the couches instead. And yeah, I do come back to these, of course, in the next video, but I do decorate them a little bit. These pictures don't stay, and the shape of the room changes a little bit, so it's not too much like this in the next part, but I am very excited to share that next part with you. Hopefully, I will be able to get the voiceover done tomorrow. It's Friday night right now, so I'm sharing this tomorrow morning, hopefully if everything goes according to plan, and then I should have the next part out on Sunday, because I don't want to wait too long in between parts since I have it all ready. Everything's edited. I just have to do the voiceover, so hopefully everything works out okay. But over here is going to be where the music store is, and I love the way this came together. I wasn't exactly sure if I liked the way it looked, and I did try a few different shapes for this build, but I decided to continue on with this kind of rounded shape for like where the door is, where it's on an angle. I felt like that would look a lot better. And then I came across this sign. I forget exactly which pack it came with. It might have been City Living, but it has these music notes on it, and I've never used it before, and it worked perfect on this build, especially the way I end up placing it, because I don't leave it the way it is right now. I actually take some half walls and create this triangle piece that pokes out of it, and then I was able to put one of those signs on either side, and when I was taking the screenshots, I just really liked the way that looked. But now I'm just messing with some floor trims and some pillars. I definitely wanted this piece to look like it was supported. I do actually bring it back in a little bit, because I thought it looked kind of awkward jetting out so far, but I think it looks much better once I bring it back in. And then now I'm just picking out some awnings to put over the windows. I end up going with some black ones because I thought that would work best for a music store. And then other than that, it pretty much has a very similar design to the restaurant, at least on the top. Other than the part that sticks out, I just pick out a few windows and put some flower boxes and maybe some awnings on the windows. I can't exactly remember. I think I might just stick with flower boxes, and I think I changed the windows too. I was really indecisive about that. I didn't want each of the buildings to look identical, but I wanted them to look similar, so I was trying to pick out like similar windows and kind of similar themes and have like a similar structure to the entire build. These signs or these pictures or whatever you want to call them that I just placed inside that music store, they came with Get Famous and they have these guitars on them, so I'm like, these are going to be perfect. And I didn't end up using them. I tried so hard, so when we get to the next part, you will see me mess around with them a lot on the interior, and I just couldn't get them to work. It was so frustrating, so I'll have to use them in a different music store, maybe one that looks a little bit more traditional, because this one I think ends up having a little bit more of a modern music store vibe to it. And also that building in between this music store and the restaurant, that's where the toy store, electronic store, void critter store, whatever you want to call it, I'm not sure what to call that store, but that's where that one ends up being, because for a while I was thinking about making it a record store, and I thought that would be really cute because I don't know, I thought I could make it work, but then I ended up doing this kind of record thing inside the music store, so I thought it'd be a little bit repetitive. And then I also thought about trying to make a comic book store, but then with having the actual bookstore, I thought that would be a little bit repetitive too. So I'm happy with the way I did it, but I definitely think that those are options for future builds. I think that could be really cool. But now I am working on that foundation and adding these stairs like I was talking about. So I think I do prefer the way it looks this way just a little bit more. But basically, to be able to fit everything that I wanted to on this lot, I had to move everything as close to the edge of the lot as I possibly could, so wasn't able to leave them. But here I'm just creating some flower boxes, and I got the idea for these from the build that's across the street. I really liked the way they created those flower boxes in their build, so I wanted to mirror them over here, but I end up not keeping these ones exactly. I end up having another flower box to the right of the movie theater, and then I have another one on the back of the build. And I think they look really good in the end, but yeah, these ones would have looked really good too. I do like the way I do it with these like hedges, but just didn't quite have the room for it, so I ended up not leaving them, but I thought I would leave it in the video so you guys could see what I was doing. And then over here on the back of the build is where I end up having the bookstore. The bookstore is very, very tiny. It's more like a tiny little storefront. So it's more just, it's not just for looks. You can definitely go inside of it and use it, but it's not like a large bookstore, so I will definitely have to do another bookstore that's a lot bigger than this one, but I really do like it. It's very cute. I just put a few bookcases and I put a chess table out in front because there is a place to sit down. I kind of do this like porch area in front of it, and I thought it was a little bit bigger when I built it, and I didn't realize that it was only like 2 tiles wide, so I couldn't really fit like a bunch of tables and chairs there. The Sims would have no room to be able to use it. So didn't quite work out that way, but I still really like the way it looks, and a chess table is definitely a really functional item in the game. You always need them, especially when you want to work on like your logic skill and stuff. So I thought that'd be kind of handy. So originally I was trying to make 2 different stores back here, but I ended up just kind of merging it into one that's the bookstore, and I think that works a little bit better. And the area that I end up leaving to the left of the bookstore ends up kind of being a little bit of dead space. I think I move it back a little bit and make the planter box a little bit bigger to kind of fill in the area. But if you did want to make the second floor accessible, that's probably the way I would go. I would just put a door here and then make a hallway into the area in between the 2 theaters, because I think that would be the easiest way. At least that's how I would do it. So that's definitely what I would say would be the best way to go about doing that. But here I am picking out a sign to put in front of the bookstore. I really wanted to use that one that came with Strangerville because it has like these books on it that are kind of like tipped over, so I thought that would be kind of cute, but I didn't think it quite worked for this build. And also the sign that I have on that little store in between the music store and the restaurant, I don't end up leaving that one either because that one has like a CD or a record on it, so that was when I still had the idea to make a record store. Which I still think would be very, very cute. But here I am just messing with the shape of the back of the build. I didn't want to leave it as one giant box because I thought that would look boring, especially the way I built the rest of it. I kind of wanted it to blend in and make it look like they were all separate little buildings all connected together. But here in a second, you will notice that I start having all these issues with these half walls. It deletes the wallpaper every time you make a change to it. It is so frustrating. So if I missed any wallpaper before I upload this to the gallery, I apologize. I am pretty sure I caught all of the pieces that got deleted. I was trying my best to keep up with it, but when I was taking screenshots, I did notice, I think, one spot that I didn't have painted. So hopefully that was the only one that I missed when it deleted it, because that was so frustrating. But here I am just moving these bowling lanes up to the second floor because I thought about creating a bowling alley up there. I thought that would look kind of okay, or at least starting the first part of the bowling alley and then taking stairs up to the actual bowling lanes. But then I decided not to. I was also thinking about creating a basement, but once I placed the lanes in the actual bowling alley, I just thought they looked so good the way I did it. So I decided to leave it that way, but you can definitely mess around with it if you guys want, because there is, of course, tons of space on the second floor. And then there I was just trying to mess around with some roof details. I decided that I didn't really like the way it looked, and I wanted to leave the roof of the main part of the structure completely flat. I felt like that just looked the best. But now I'm just bringing out these bowling lanes to the ground floor so I can actually create the bowling alley, and I'm really happy with the way this came out. This is definitely one of my favorite spots of the entire build because I just really like the colors. It's so bright, and I just like all of the orangey woods. And then the decorations that I included, I think it's just a really pretty area of the build. And I also really like the brick that I used on the interior and the exterior, because I used the brick that I used on a small part of the front of the movie theater. I don't use this brick a whole lot, but it kind of has this orangey color to it, and it's really rustic. I really like it. I've tried to use the brick a lot of different times, but I haven't had too many builds that I thought it looked right on, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I really liked using it here. So you will see some of it on the exterior, and then I also include in the next part on the interior. So really happy with the way that turned out. And then for inside of this bowling alley, I end up including the 2 lanes, and I make this kind of sunken in area to the lanes, which I think looks really good. And then there's a couple of seating areas. There's a few tables where your Sims can sit and eat. And then there is a small building in between the bowling alley and the arcade. And I thought about making that a separate store. And what I decided to do was I ended up putting one of those vending machines like I was talking about earlier, the one that has the hot dogs and the hamburgers. I placed that in there, and I do the same thing that I did when I created my motel build in Del Sol Valley. If you guys saw that build, I did these things with the stalls where I kind of made it look like it was more built into the structure, like it had more of a spot to be rather than just a freestanding stall. So you will kind of see it in this part, but it definitely comes together in the next part, and I really like the way it turned out, and it definitely all works totally fine. My Sim was able to order lots of food from there. But now I'm just messing with the bowling alley a little bit more, picking out some wallpaper for the top half of this build. I kind of wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I do end up using some more shingle siding because I thought it looked so good, especially with the windows and stuff that I ended up using. And I also really liked using that bowling sign that came with the bowling stuff pack on the front of the building. I thought it looked so good there, and it's very similar to the way that I did the music store, so I feel like they kind of mirror each other a little bit, and they're very similar in structure, so I like the way that came together. And the arcade ends up having a similar kind of design to it too, just a little bit different, so I was pretty happy about that. But now I am just working on the bowling alley a little bit more. This was definitely the hardest part of the build because these lanes are just ginormous. They're so hard to use, but I think I made it work pretty nicely. I have this sunken in area, and that's the flooring that I end up leaving in there. I don't know why I chose it so quickly, but I did, and I really liked it. So I left that in there, and then I think it ends up having some like yellow wallpaper. So it's just like really kind of sunny and vibrant feeling, I guess is the best way to describe it. I'm not exactly sure. But here I am messing around with that food stall. So like I said, it does definitely work. I do have a door that goes into the area so the vendor can get in there and work the food stall. And they have tons of room to be able to do it. I kind of wanted it to look like it was its own separate store. So that's why I put the window here and the doorway. I was trying to put some signs on the window to kind of cover up how the food stall looked because it looked kind of awkward. And then I also tried to cover up the top of it with a few different signs. I wasn't successful while I was building this part of the video, but when I go in to actually decorate the interior of the bowling alley, I find that one of those signs that came with Get Together, if you turn it around and have it from the back side of it. It's completely brown and it covers it up perfectly, so it actually looks really good in the end, I think. But now I am going to be working on building the arcade, so you will see here that I have like no space to work with after building everything. So I do move the whole lot over to the left side of it if we're looking at it from the front, just by a couple of tiles, and then I make this area as big as I possibly can. It ends up being, I think, plenty big. I wish I could have fit more arcade machines in there, but I think 2 is definitely enough for your Sims to be able to use a lot of them. And then now I'm just working on the structure of the arcade. So it does look pretty similar right now to the other buildings. I do switch it up for just a little bit. I was trying to do something kind of different. That way all of the buildings weren't exactly the same, but I didn't think it really looked quite right. So I do go back to the original shape. It's not exactly the way I have it right now, but it's a lot more similar to the other buildings than the way I change it to. And then now I'm just kind of making this building look a little bit more complete. I wasn't really liking the way it looked before, so I put some awnings, switch up the windows, and it's very similar to the toy store on the other side of the building. It has like the same type of second floor with the window and then the flower box, but I think it just looks really nice and it kind of blends into the other ones really well too, I think. And I end up going with this gray brick on the exterior of the arcade store. And then now I'm just shuffling around these windows. They were all at like the wrong level, so I did have to mess around with them a little bit. But here in just a moment, I do change the whole shape of this arcade to be like a giant square. But I wanted to round off the concrete and I didn't have any room to do that, so I had to go to the very top of the building and use that little bit of space up there to be able to make it small enough to be able to fit it. But there I just moved the entire structure just so I had a little bit more space. And I think even off camera, when I went to actually go decorate the arcade, I actually pull out the entire building by another square. So if it looks a little bit different in the next part, I think that's why. I'm pretty sure I didn't record it, and I'm not exactly sure why, but anyway, so here I am just changing the structure of this arcade like I was talking about, and I think the square shape of it, it kind of looks okay, but it looks a little bit out of place and it didn't give me any more space inside the arcade, so I didn't think it was really that necessary. But here I am just pulling out these giant arcade machines, and I have to move some more things around, make the sidewalk a little bit bigger, and then this is when I just get rid of the whole stairs idea. And I still do really like the way it looks, but I did like the way the stairs look too, so it's kind of a shame, but I still really do like it. And then here I am just creating a spot that kind of jets out in between the arcade and the movie theater, and that's where I end up putting the planter box. I just put it right in front of there. And then now I am going back to the original shape of this arcade. I think this just looks so much better. And then I switch up the windows and the door to kind of match some of the other ones. And I just think they look a little bit better than these ones. I don't know. I mean, they're meant for retail stores, so I guess they kind of just fit the whole storefront idea, and I think they look really good anyway, so I just switch them out right now and I just add a couple of other details. I made a pop-out piece for that sign that I thought could be for the arcade. I thought that sign was perfect because it is kind of a little bit neon, so I thought that was pretty. And then here I'm just moving over the flower boxes. I got rid of the ones in front of the movie theater and I created that one right there. And I really liked using that ivy that came with Jungle Adventure. I mean, I always like using that ivy, but I definitely try to not overdo it because I feel like I have a tendency to overuse that ivy when I use it. But I felt like here it looked really nice. And then now I'm just finishing up the arcade by adding some windows up here. And I just really like the way it came together, and I really liked building this. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this first half of the speed build. And I hope you guys are looking forward to the second half. And I hope you guys do enjoy the screenshots. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And please leave any comments or suggestions that you have. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!
They were in high school when they met, and things got kinda awkward. With sparks in the air, he would stare at her in class, and she would try to act cool. But it was obvious, like, ooh, they would be together, ooh. And one day she said, write me a love song, 'cause I know you'll make it beautiful. And maybe I'll call you my sweetheart and promise nobody can steal me away. Then I am yours, 'cause I want you and I wanted you to know. He looked at her and then he smiled, picked up a pen and paper and started writing. Probably something about her eyes and how they're always shining, or something cliche like ooh. Baby, I only want you. It's true. And then he said, I wrote you a love song